Said and Mr. Mu Qing and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to get together with friends and colleagues to participate in the new development of RMB internationalization under the New Situation Forum. On July 6, 2009, BOC Shanghai branch received the first RMB cross-border trade settlement payment, which marked the beginning of RMB cross-border use. 13 years later, the function of RMB as a global payment currency has been steadily strengthened, and its function as an investment reserve and pricing currency has emerged. Presently, the global pandemic continues. The international political and economic environment becomes more complicated and severe. The recovery and development of the real economy needs financial assistance. The 20th NC report pointed out promoting the internationalization of RMB in an orderly manner. It is not only the objective demand of the market players, but also of great significance to the high-quality development of China's economy, the construction of a dual circulation, new development pattern, and a high level of opening. We are gathering here today to discuss in depth about the new development of RMB internationalization. This forum has specially arranged the main venue in Beijing and the sub-venue in Singapore. And also, the leaders and guests from the UAE and Hong Kong also participated in the discussion. To promote the RMB internationalization to a new level in win-win cooperation, there are two important items for this forum. One is the remarks by leaders. The other is a special session on the new development of RMB internationalization in the new era. First of all, allow me to introduce the leaders who attended this forum in Beijing, UAE, and Singapore. The Vice Mayor of Beijing, Mr. Yang Jingbai. Assistant Governor, Central Bank of UAE, Mr. Saif Hamid Dahari, and CEO of Singapore Exchange Group, Mr. Luo Mo-Qing, and President Liu Jing of Bank of China. Let's give them a warm applause for their presence. Additionally, we have also invited with us the experts, leaders, and scholars from the financial sector, and also media friends. So we will have a very insightful discussion about development cooperation. And now let's come to the first item based on the agenda. Let's first welcome the Vice Mayor of Beijing, Mr. Yang Jingbai, to deliver a remark. Distinguished President Liu Jing, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good afternoon. It is a great honor to have this meeting together with the officials and friends from UAE, Singapore, and Hong Kong SAR. On behalf of the Beijing municipality, I would like to extend warmest welcome to all the distinguished guests, and our sincere thanks also go to all of you. In 2020, the FSM was elevated to a state-level forum. It is one of the four major forums in financial area. It is also an important platform for publicity of the financial policies. And China's participation in the international governance can also be reflected on this FSM forum. On this platform, we discuss about the hot issues in the industry, and this forum has reflected our glorious development process of the financial sector. It also shows China's strong confidence in promoting financial cooperation. Starting from 2021, in order to better seize the trend of RMB internationalization, this forum has adopted this topic as an important theme for our parallel forum. In the 20th NC report, it says that we need to promote RMB internationalization in an orderly manner, and we need to focus on the economic development and financial cooperation. So this theme of this forum is of high importance to the financial sector. Beijing stands ready to working with all other countries and regions to seize this trend and opportunity and to provide high quality and highly efficient business environment for all investors and operators, and also to provide good environment for investment, work, and business and life for all investors. And the hosting of the Beijing Winter Olympic Games and Paralympic Games have been closely cooperating with the Financial Forum, and we have provided very convenient RMB settlement service, and we actively explored the RMB settlement and to promote the internationalization of our currency. In recent years, we are promoting actively the settlement with RMB currency, and the payment infrastructure of RMB has also been elevated, which are quite important vigor and vitality for the industry. And Beijing also offers the cross-border RMB settlement services for the investment. In the first 5 months, the cross-border RMB settlement value reached 6.8 trillion yuan, and the effective RMB settlement and also RMB's role in promoting economic development has been quite significant. And Beijing has taken the digital currency pilot campaign, the financial market access, capital market openness, and certification for financial institutions and supervision. We have achieved a lot of milestones in all these aspects. We have been promoting the foreign investment, currency investment, insurance companies, and also a series of landmark projects have been landed in Beijing. And now we have carried out the integration of local currency and foreign currency settlement. And in terms of the credit line, we have also made great achievements in the RMB currency conversion, and we will try to provide more open financial policies and to create open, equitable, and competitive environment in this area. We'll support more high-quality development to develop in Beijing and to promote the business incubation and further optimize the cross-border use of RMB policy and to promote the high-quality and RMB cross-border payment facilitation and to truly deliver the RMB's role in serving international trade, international investment, and the building of benchmark digital cities. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, presently, Beijing has taken reform and opening up as an engine of our development. With the in-depth development of our policies, the doors of Beijing will be open more wider, and we will provide the best rule of law environment, business environment, the best service mechanism to warmly welcome the global investors to operate in Beijing. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yang, for your remarkable speech. In terms of the RMB internationalization, Beijing has been in the forefront, and Beijing also has been a champion and leader in this regard. And we also hope that Beijing will continue to lead in this sector and play an even more big role in this aspect. Now let's give the floor to Mr. Saif Hamid Dahari from the Central Bank of UAE. Please welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be invited to deliver a key address at this conference. This annual congregation is a good reflection of the importance we place on the long-established relationship and cooperation between the United Arab Emirates and China. And the conference could not have come at a better time because the UAE-Chinese bilateral trade has recently exceeded $64 billion during the first 8 months of 2022, which also mark about 28% increase compared to the same period last year. To date, China has become the UAE largest non-oil trading partner in the world, and the UAE remains China's second largest trading partner and the largest export market in the Arab region. The friendship between China and the Arab countries goes back ancient time, and to my heart, the two sides are good friends and good partners. Therefore, the interest of China is always the interest of the UAE, and the development of the RMB is also of an interest to the UAE. In 2016, the International Monetary Fund announced its decision to include the RMB in its special drawing right basket. It represents a milestone in the development of the RMB, which as of 1st of August represent 12.3% of the SDR basket. The IMF decision reaffirmed the Chinese currency status as a freely usable currency and enhanced the representativeness of the SDR basket. Indeed, the RMB inclusion in the basket has brought up to over 380 trillion worth of investment in RMB asset by central banks, sovereign wealth fund, supranational organization, large pension fund, and institutional investor at the end of 2021. More importantly, I believe the IMF decision has promoted further confidence in the using of the RMB for international trade and financial transactions, giving more impetus to the RMB's internationalization process. Significant progress has also been made in other areas in cross-border use of RMB over the past few years. I see three important trends emerging. The first is the continuing liberalization of the financial account with major breakthrough in the new policy headroom granted by the Chinese authority. For example, foreign central bank, sovereign wealth funds, and supranational organization has been allowed access to the Chinese interbank bond market without investment costs and to conduct a much wider range of transactions. They were also granted access to the Chinese foreign exchange market. These has been key steps in liberating the financial account, and the central bank, including the Central Bank of the UAE, has shown a great deal of interest in diversifying their investment holding. The second trend is that not only the Chinese capital going out, Chinese companies are also increasingly going out. Outward direct investment by China to the rest of the world amounted to about 930 billion RMB in 2021, a 9.2% rise over the past year. And it is interesting to note that about 16% of this flow are settled in RMB. This going out trends have been continuing for some time, but has been given a fresh impetus by a great desire of Chinese enterprises to diversify into other non-RMB asset classes. Today, the UAE is home to over 6,000 Chinese businesses, with around 300,000 Chinese professionals employed in the infrastructure, energy, and other sectors. As of August 2022, China export 4.8 billion US and import 4.2 billion US from the UAE, resulting in a trade balance of $603 million. Statistics indicate that China total direct investment in the UAE increased by 170% in 2019. This accounts for 54% of China's investment in all 22 Arab League members on that year. We look forward to seeing significant increase in Chinese direct investment in the UAE. Second trend, the new policy measured by the Chinese authorities, notably the Belt and Road Initiative, has also played a key role in the RMB development. The UAE is a gateway for Chinese enterprises to go global. This makes the UAE the major hub of the Belt and Road Initiative and a regional aviation, transportation, and financial center. The UAE is therefore an important gateway for Chinese enterprises to go global and a crossroad between Europe and Asia. The establishment of the first overseas office of the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank in Abu Dhabi in mid-2022 fully shows the strategic importance of the UAE-Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. The commencement of operation of the Abu Dhabi office of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank is expected to bring more Chinese capital and companies going out over time. The UAE deep and mature financial markets will be an ideal place for corporate to raise funds for infrastructure projects, and manage investment for their Belt and Road development. The capital investment projects are also expected to create a new opportunity for the use of the RMB in trade and investment activities, giving a rise to a new opportunity for RMB settlement, financial and asset management in the MENA region. The third trend is the cooperation between the UAE and China in science and technology that has also drawn a close attention of the international community. In fact, the two countries made a series of firsts in the world, such as the world first phase 3 clinical trial of COVID-19 inactive vaccine, the first COVID-19 vaccine production line, Hayat Vax vaccine production plant with an annual production capacity of 200 million doses, and approved a second generation recombinant protein COVID-19 vaccine for emergency. In addition, the UAE and the Aerospace Authority of China signed a memorandum of understanding on the mission of the lunar rover named Rashid. I anticipate that there will be a series of space cooperations in the future. The success of our high-tech cooperation in artificial intelligence, 5G telecommunication, and genetic technology is also dependent on the progress of the success of the RMB internationalization that provides an effective and efficient means for capital and money flow to support these initiatives. Any internationalization of a currency cannot succeed without the support of a robust and secure and efficient financial infrastructure. In the UAE, the Central Bank of the UAE has played a major role in promoting and developing financial infrastructure, with its strategy focusing on implementing and strengthening the infrastructure to support all financial and economic activities in the country. The Central Bank of the UAE has recently completed the first and the largest scale pilot of central bank digital currency with the Digital Currency Institute of the People's Bank of China and other international partners. The CBDCs were used by 20 commercial banks for real value transactions on behalf of their corporate clients across border as part of the M-Bridge project, a multi-CBDC bridge project. This innovation, the first pilot use of a wholesale CBDC in the MENA region, reflect the Central Bank of the UAE drive to create a world-class financial infrastructure and innovative payment system, which comes in line with the UAE Leadership Directive to support the UAE economic competitiveness and empower the diversity and growth of the national financial sector. Throughout the pilot project, commercial banks in the UAE, China, and other two jurisdictions use the M-Bridge platform to conduct over 160 payment and foreign exchange transactions, totaling over $22 million over a 6-week period. The use of the e-AAD and the e-RMB for cross-border international trade settlement between the UAE and China will help speed up the use of domestic currency for all cross-border activities, and obviously will accelerate the RMB development in a digital manner. The project M-Bridge demonstrated a faster, cost-effective, and secure cross-border monetary settlement using central bank money, identified as the G20 economic priority, and a positive impact for UAE-based regional and UAE-China cross-border trade. It fully demonstrates that the UAE Central Bank, as well as the UAE, are committed in providing an efficient, regulatory compliant, and scalable cross-border payment solution with CBDC at its core, designed to operate across different jurisdiction and currency, especially with China, to support the RMB development. In conclusion, I sincerely hope the two sides will continue strengthening cooperation in investment, currency exchange, and CBDC, and play a vital role in promoting cooperation in new energy, biomedical, and high-tech innovative enterprises. The UAE stands ready to work with China as a good partner for a common development and joint progress. In addition, financial centers like Abu Dhabi and Dubai with their robust and mature market infrastructure, can play a major role in facilitating further use of the RMB internationally. In this context, today's conference is an essential element in sharing our experience and learning from each other, particularly in the area of market and product development. Finally, I wish you all a fruitful conference. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
And thank you, Mr. Saif, for your wonderful speech. And it should say that we have intensified financial economic cooperation between China and the UAE, and we believe RMB will play a bigger role. And Singapore Exchange Group focus on the offshore RMB innovation by providing a lot of innovative RMB products. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Luo Boncai, CEO of Singapore Exchange Group. We cannot hear from the side. Please be patient. We are waiting for the signal. Due to technical issue, we have to make some rearrangement of the schedule. And we know the internationalization of RMB is inseparable from the participation of commercial banks. Bank of China has been deeply involved in and promote internationalization of RMB, taking the responsibility of a main channel. Now, I'd like to invite Mr. Liu Jin, President of Bank of China, to give us the speech. The floor is yours. Bank of China is the host of today's forum. We want to make the speech in the last session so that we can leave more time to our guests. But due to technical issue, I have to move my speech earlier. And the distinguished Vice Mayor of Beijing, and the distinguished Mr. Saif, and the distinguished Mr. Luo Boncai, and ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to join in this Beijing Financial Street Forum, and that is the annual conference of the Financial Street Forum. And in this year, we have a new logo. Apart from the golden logo, we have a 1992 to 2022, and that is the 30th anniversary logo of the Financial Street. And reviewing the past 30 years, I should say that Financial Street Forum plays an important role in the financial reform and international cooperation. Bank of China very honorably hosts such a grand forum in this year. That is the the internationalization of RMB under the new situation. As the host of this forum, on behalf of Bank of China, I'd like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to all of you and my heartfelt appreciation to your support, help, and the care given to Bank of China. Not long ago, the 20th CPC National Congress clearly, explicitly proposed the orderly promotion of RMB internationalization. In today's forum, we talked about this topic, and this is at the right timing. Just now, your presentations and speeches are very insightful remarks, and your views are very useful and provide a new vision and a new perspective when promote internationalization of RMB. We know that a global economic recovery is slowing down due to uncertainties. Financial market has a lot of uncertainties, and RMB shoulders a greater responsibility by the PBOC statistics. And in the first 8 months, and the cross-border settlement is up to 27.8 trillion, up by 15.2%. In the same time, and the account of RMB is even enhanced by 49.4%, which is historical high, which means that the demand is growing for the cross-border RMB in the transaction. Now I want to talk about the new trend of internationalization of RMB as well as the commercial bank's service in providing offshore RMB. Some of our views. First of all, the capital market in China is opening up its openness to the outside world, creating a very sound internal environment for the RMB internationalization. The overseas institution, the invested scope by the foreign capital expanded, and the ETF, and it has been included into Shanghai Hong Kong Connect. And there are more diversified investment targets, and the rules in transaction and investment is more internationally compliant. Due to this policy dividend, the international community has a higher awareness and acknowledgement of RMB. These are some data to share with you, so that we can better know these latest progress of RMB internationalization. First of all, SWIFT system, and in this year, people know the word. And according to SWIFT, and in October 2022, based on the global payment by currency, RMB maintains top 5 most active currency, accounting for 2.13%. The second data, in the first quarter this year, the foreign exchange or reserve held by different countries, among which RMB accounts for 2.88%. In comparison to 2016, when China was included into SDR, it was up by 1.8%, ranked number 5 in the major currencies. And before us, it is US, UK, Japan, and Euro currencies. And in this year, and the SDR weighting is increased from 10.92% to 12.28%. The other data, I should say, by the latest settlement bank, RMB in the global foreign exchange transaction in 2019, it was 4.3%, expanded to 7% this year. The ranking was up from 8 to 5th, which is the largest currency with the highest market growth. The other data I want to share with you, that's PBOC in other 28 countries and regions set up 30 RMB settlement banks, and 7 are located in ASEP member countries. And over 40 countries and regions, PBOC signed the payment by RMB, among which 8 are ASEP member states. And in May this year, IMF increased our SDR weighting, and over 80 monetary authorities and central banks include RMB into their central bank's foreign reserve. And in the latest white paper reported, and 61.3% interviewed overseas institutions is going to have a higher weighting of RMB assets.
Up 9% YOY. And for the securities and fund management institutions, they would like to increase the RMB assets, and majority of them have expressed such will. Taking Bank of China as an example, in the 3 quarters of this year, the cross-border RMB settlement has exceeded actually 4 trillion yuan, up 15%, and this has shown that the RMB internationalization process has provided a favorable environment. Second, the regional in-depth cooperation has also presented new opportunities. In January this year, RCEP officially came into effect, and the cooperation between China and the regional countries have also opened up the space for RMB settlement in cross-border activities. And China's import and export with ASEAN countries increased 7%. In the first 3 quarters, within the ASEAN countries, we have provided 25% more of cross-border RMB settlement and use. And the bilateral local currency cooperation has also elevated the RMB use. The PBOC of China, together with 40 central banks of the regional countries, have established a currency swap agreement. In September 2021, together with Indonesia Central Bank, we initiated the local currencies settlement agreement, and also in direct investment between China and Indonesia through the local currency payment, we have seen that 8.6% of the payment was actually handled through RMB. That's for the cooperation between China and Indonesia, and that is also a recent example. Number 3, the fintech innovation has been gaining strength, which is important for RMB internationalization. And the fintech application has facilitated cross-border payment, promoted the market players, and also the willingness of using RMB. For example, Bank of China has actually responded actively to the RMB use, and we also launched a one-stop connect service by using RMB, and also this growth rate of fintech technology in application of RMB use has increased by around 10%. So we have also expanded the application scenarios of RMB use, just as Mr. Saif of UAE Central Bank, he mentioned that internationalization of local currency cannot be separated from the efficient financial infrastructure. The digital RMB also plays a key role in the cross-border payment and digital infrastructure construction. Under the guidance of PBOC, the Bank of China, with our subsidiaries at home and abroad, have carried out digital currency settlement in UAE, Thailand, and other countries, and we have already completed the first batch of settlements and transactions, which have provided new pathways in this business. Number 4, the offshore RMB market is deepening, which offers external support for internationalization. The offshore market is very favorable for RMB use in overseas market. The PBOC data shows that we have 1.5 trillion of reserve in RMB currency, and in Hong Kong SAR, we have established the largest offshore RMB market outside of the mainland market, and the RMB business has steadily grown into a hub for offshore RMB business, and in Hong Kong, and this establishment of RMB settlement hub has exceeded 13 trillion yuan with 35% of increase. And this has shown the further revitalization of circulation of RMB in the overseas market. And also the return flow or backflow of RMB channel has also been facilitated. We have provided the Bond Connect and Northward RMB Connect, and this kind of derivatives have actually created a new situation for the offshore RMB business. And today's forum and a series of forums have been attended by domestic and international financial investors. And these international investors are quite optimistic about the onshore and offshore RMB market, and they also have very in-depth research in this area. In their internal management, they constantly launched the RMB internationalization research deliverables, which is a quite insight for us. So we're very happy that so many international counterparts can attend our conference, and they also actually jointly promote with us about the RMB internationalization. We have full confidence that this confidence will bring new development, and our bank will further focusing on serving the real economy and to utilize the favorable regional environment and actively promote the innovative application of fintech, RMB, and further make breakthroughs and to contribute to the RMB internationalization to a higher level. Thank you. Thank you, President Liu. We apologize very much because just now there was technical issue with the Singapore side, and nowadays we see that all kinds of risks are emerging. So it is very regretful that this time we cannot hear Ro Boon Chin from Singapore Exchange. Just now, the leaders and experts shared with us about different mindset and pathways for RMB internationalization. And now we will come to the roundtable discussion. And this session will be chaired by Madam Gao Haihong, Senior Fellow and Director of the Institute of World Economics and Politics, Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. We'll also have colleagues from Singapore and also UAE to join this roundtable session. So please come to the podium, our distinguished panelists. Dear leaders, distinguished guests, good afternoon. I'm Gao Haihong from CASS. It's a great honor for me to chair this session. For this roundtable session, we have with us 7 distinguished panelists. And we will still focus on the RMB internationalization in terms of the new developments. We would like to have some in-depth discussion and brainstorming. So first of all, allow me to introduce the distinguished panelists. In Beijing venue, we have 3 distinguished guests. So the gentleman beside me is Mr. Li Bing, the Director General of the Macroprudent Management Bureau of the PBOC, and also Xu Lihong, CEO of the finance company of State Power Investment Corporation SPIC, Madam Xu Lihong, and also the one a little bit further from me is Mr. Hugh de la Marnige from the Societe Generale. And also we have overseas panelists in Singapore sub-venue. We have 2 distinguished panelists. So the first one, the Regional Director, General Manager of Clearstream Banking Singapore branch, Robert Tabit, and also Professor from National University of Singapore, Pei Sip Fan. So in our UAE sub-venue online, we have the CEO of the Arab Regional Payments Clearing and Settlement Organization, Mr. Mahdi Mana, and also on the Hong Kong SAR side, we have the Hui Qing-Win, Secretary of Hong Kong Financial Services and the Treasury. Let's give all the panelists a great applaud. And next, we will just get straight to the topics. So I would like each panelist to keep your speech within 5 minutes. So I hope that we will have 2 rounds of discussions.
And in each round of questions, your answering time is no more than 5 minutes. First of all, I'd like to offer some background information to make it started. And we know that we are in a world that with multiple risks, apart from the global inflation and tightening monetary policies and reshaping of the value chain. And also, we are confronted by this geopolitical tension, and that has a big impact on the international relation. Recently, the chief economist of IMF and Mr. Pierre-Olivier Rinches made a warning that if the situation continues without a change, especially the political intervention, the global currency system will have a great fragmentation. And of course, this will be a very bad result. We try our best to avoid great fragmentation. And so we need to actively think about to rebuild the international currency system. What is the role played by RMB? We have been discussing so much about the domestic and international development of RMB. However, globally speaking, we know that the significance lies within the formation of a new international currency. What is the role played by RMB? That is the basic background. Just now, Mr. Liu Jin offered many statistics, very exciting. Internationalization of RMB has been in very good progress and attributed to the market momentum, international cooperation, and also supported by the favorable conditions. I should say that internationalization of RMB is very remarkable. And under the new situation, full of uncertainties and a lot of risks, and some new momentum is there. and what will be the new opportunities to RMB. So I'm really looking forward to your feedback, both online and offline, and you can share with us your views. So that is to make a start, and also I want to ask these questions. And I want to ask Mr. Li Bing. And I should say that RMB internationalization has made a very remarkable progress. Would you please to update on us the latest development of RMB internationalization, especially some positive feedback? And would you please to share that with us? Thank you so much. I really want to thank Professor Gao. It's my great honor to join you in this Financial Street Forum and to talk about the development of RMB under the new world, in this new world. We know that the RMB internationalization started from 2008 when the global community had a greater demand for RMB. And in the past 10 years, PBOC, by the State Council's arrangement, and we respect the market, fit into the demand and the risk controllable risks, and we keep optimizing the policies for RMB, encouraging the cross-border utilization of RMB. Yes, it gave us very good feedback, and President Liu Jin offered us many data and a very good and positive feedback. And at present, financial institutions and individual cross-border transactions, half of them are settled in RMB, as illustrated by President Liu Jin, and up to 49.4%. The international status of RMB is on the rise. IMF talked about the weighing of RMB in SDR, making RMB top 3. Globally speaking, over 80 economies include RMB into its foreign reserves. Ever since this year, Professor Gao mentioned the latest update of RMB. In my view, we can summarize into the following aspects. First of all, the cross-border RMB has a higher capability in serving real economy. PBOC make a collaboration onshore and offshore of RMB centers, and the entities to settle in to make settlement in RMB because they can avoid the financial risks. They have a deeper or higher aspiration to do so. And in the goods settlement cross-border, and we know it reached a very high level. Then the under investment category RMB utilization is also reached a historical high. The other thing is the financial cost for RMB shows a great evidence. As a financing, as a tool to make a financing investment, RMB has a very strong advantage. For example, new business model in the international trade and investment financing environment for RMB is improved. And also recently, as a bond currency, RMB is up to eighth worldwide. And in the trade financing, RMB is up to 4.25%. That is 2.52% year-on-year growth. Thirdly, it further emphasizes the currency cooperation between different central banks. So ever since this year, together with Hong Kong financial management regulations, and we have a swap agreement and increased from 500 billion yuan to 800 billion yuan, further enhanced the financial cooperation between mainland China and Hong Kong. And also, we make a further arrangement in the settlement bank overseas in Laos, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, and we newly set up the RMB settlement banks, and which optimize RMB's ecosystem. And the other thing, more active transaction offshore RMB centers. There is a stronger internal drivers, and it is up to 1.5 trillion yuan for the settlement surplus. And by the investigation by PBOC in the recent 3 years, the transaction made by RMB increased from 4.3% to 7%, which is the fastest among all the currencies, which means that after foreign assets owned RMB, in terms of the hedging, repurchase, and a series of transactions have internal demand for RMB. So generally speaking, RMB internationalization has a very sound market foundation. And recently, we do witness a positive sign of internal growth. We stepped in an orderly development time, which is quite good. Thank you. Thank you, Director Li Bing, for sharing with us that PBOC has done a lot of work in promoting internationalization of RMB to serve the real economy with the support from the market. The result is quite good. Your summary is very exciting. And probably I will come back with another question after this round. The second speaker, firstly, I want to say, and Mr. Xu, and just now I didn't pronounce the name very correctly. I'd like to invite Mr. Xu, CEO, Finance Company of State Power Investment Corporation Limited. We know that your company is a large state-owned company. Would you please to talk about the internationalization internationalize the development of State Power Investment Corporation, as well as what are some good practice you have done and in the RMB internationalization. And thank you, Professor. And it's my great honor to join you in the Financial Street Forum. Just now, I listened to the different leaders' speeches, very thought-provoking, especially the speech made by President Liu Jin. And I learned a lot. And I'm from the State Power Investment Company. First of all, I want to say something about the corporation where I work, that is State Power Investment. And I should say that SPIC is an important state-owned company. And in 2022, we ranked number 260 in the top 500 global companies as a state company. And we have wind, solar energy, hydropower, and all categories of powers, especially SPIC in the new energy, clean energy, PV energy installed capacity, we are ranking number 1 worldwide. And by the end of October, SPIC installed capacity is up to 211 million kilowatt, and the total asset is 1.5 trillion yuan. Investment in China is the highest one, 6.56%. In recent years, we actively responding to BRI and Going Global strategy. SPIC actively promotes our internationalized development. Our overseas business covers 46 countries and regions. Overseas installed capacity is up to 10 million kilowatt. And now I want to talk about in the RMB internationalization, what we have done at SPIC. And first of all, and we have a green energy industrial chain. We have transactions settled in RMB, and by overseas investment, we can export our high quality capacity. For example, our electric equipment purchase is made in China. For example, the PV plant in Vietnam, and wind power in Kazakhstan, and hydropower units in Myanmar, and as well as Saudi Arabia, we have wind power units. And all these projects, the equipments are purchased from China in the international trade in Guinea, and the international aluminum trade, we use euro currency, US dollars and RMB. And the other thing is that we try to promote RMB cross-border transaction And in the global currency pool, for example, in Hong Kong, we have a offshore currency pool so that we can collect these overseas RMB. The other thing is that the cross-border pass is cleared for RMB, and over 300 companies already included into the cross-border pool of the currency. SPIC, the financing by RMB is up to 10%. And the overseas settlement of RMB annually is up to 50 billion, accounting for 16%. And that is the second point. The third one is that by relying on financial innovation, we try to make the flow of offshore RMB smoother. For example, in Hong Kong, and we will have a Hong Kong finance company as a platform for offshore RMB and the bonds and cross-border financing and the QLFFP, different channels. We try to attract investors to engage in the new energy projects. The introduced RMB investment up to 10 billion yuan. We also make innovative measures, and in 2020, our overseas database, payment database is online, and that is the plant for payment. At our corporate level, we can promote the flow and the circulation of offshore RMB. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. And it is true that SPIC sees a very broad opportunity of green energy, and you are actively expanding your business while effectively include RMB internationalization into your business. You talked about the overseas currency pool as well as others. Quite leading ideas, very good guidance for other companies. Thank you very much. And we learned a lot from you. And next, I'd like to invite the third speaker to make to answer this question.
So, Mr. Huesler-Magner, we know that foreign banks are important participants and practitioners of RMB internationalization. It plays a key role in serving market entities such as enterprises and expanding the use of RMB in trade and investment. So this role is very important for foreign bank. So what are the advantages of foreign banks in promoting the internationalization of RMB, and how to give full play to such advantages?
Thank you. First of all, I would like just to mention the fact that it's a great pleasure and an honor to be discussing this topic with you today, and I would like to thank BOC in particular for this kind invitation. So just a few words about Société Générale, who we are. We are an international bank settled in Europe, but we are present in 61 countries. We've been existing for 157 years. And we've been in China for 41 years. So obviously, internationalization or international presence is absolutely key for a company like ours, and in China in particular. So the natural evolution and internationalization of RMB is something that from our companies we consider as welcome. The main things that I would like to mention is that, like many foreign banks, institutions present in China, we have integrated SIPs, the settlement system for the RMB in China, and I think it's quite good. We are an indirect member, not a direct member. There is only few direct members in this system, and definitively this is one of the steps that we consider are facilitating the internationalization and the use of renminbi for global transactions, which is something that is we consider is quite key. One thing is really obvious as well is the fact that for renminbi internationalization, we don't believe that actually there is a position of competition to have between institutions, and we believe that with Chinese banks in particular, we believe that the right positioning is really to ensure the fact that there is even more cooperation precisely in developing technological tools to facilitate the expansion of renminbi, which is very important, so that it's a win-win positioning between Chinese financial institutions and foreign financial institutions. The last point I would like to mention is the fact that, for renminbi to continue to be used more and more for international purposes, what we strongly believe is the fact that you need to have the financial tools to hedge the risks of the currencies. We have seen that actually the recent market volatility has been extreme across the world, and definitively without having the right tools to provide not only the facilities of the payments, but potentially also the possibility to hedge this currency exposure, it will be difficult to continue. So I think it's important to see the continuous modernization, not only of the tools to do the payment, but also all the derivatives that are linked with renminbi usage in order to be able to hedge the interest rate risks and the currency risks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We know that SG participated in the CIPS program, and it is a very good news for all of us, because CIPS is very important for RMB internationalization. It's a part of the key infrastructure. And you also mentioned that the institutions should have more cooperation, and we need to capitalize on our own strengths more in our cooperation. And we also need to fend off the risks with the right financial tools. And these are quite valuable recommendations. So thank you again, Mr. Lamanier. And thank you for your very important insight on the perspective of SG. And now, we would like to connect with the next panelist at the Singapore sub-venue. And we would like to switch to the Singapore side. And at the Singapore side, we have two panelists. So I would like to ask each of you. So the first, I would like to ask about Mr. Robert Tambert. We all know that recently, on the mainland side, the cross-border financial connect and southbound connect and wealth management bond, these channel-based initiatives have been launched, and so the usage scenario of RMB under the capital account are more abundant. So I would like to know that for your bank, the Clearstream banking, you are serving for the domestic and international clients. So how does your bank serve the RMB internationalization and serve the overseas investment? And what are your major contributions in this area? And also, how does Clearstream contribute to the development of the Chinese capital markets and RMB internationalization? So, Mr. Robert Tambert, please answer. Please respond to my question. Thank you.
Thank you, and hello from Singapore. Hello, friends in Beijing. Hello, friends in the UAE. Before I start, I would like to thank, the organizers, the municipality of Beijing, PBOC, SAFE, Bank of China, the president of Bank of China, the GM here, CSRC, CBIRC, thank you for inviting me to be a speaker here on behalf of my institution, on behalf of Clearstream, and on behalf of Deutsche Börse Group, as we are owned by Deutsche Börse Group. How do we contribute to the RMB internationalization? We are an institution that has been in business for 50 plus years. We do have 2,500 banks who are using us. We give them access to 60 domestic markets, and China is one of those markets. As I said, 60 domestic markets. China, we have been in China since the 80s. I was still in high school when my institution started developing our business in China. Today, for us, China is more than 1 trillion in assets internationally. Today, China is for us more than 50 customers, more than 50 banks. Almost every bank, with a lot of pride, I say it, uses us in China and outside China. And I'm talking here about the Chinese banks. So we are the only ICSD, International Central Security Depository, that connects the world to China. So it's not just outbound, what we call southbound. It's more, we started with the outbound, connecting the Chinese banks to international capital markets, to the G3, to Germany, to the US, to England, to Singapore, and so on. But in the last couple of years, with the internationalization of the RMB, we started connecting the world to China. What did we do? Today, as I said, we are the only ICSD with a connection to China through Stock Connect, Bond Connect, and CIBM. And we get flows, Banks in Germany, in the UK, in the UAE use us to go and invest locally through those 3 channels. We help issuers, right? We help issuers in China, and foreign issuers issue in RMB. How do we help them? We are in the middle, as I said, between 2,500 banks and financial institutions. And those banks, they do have their customers. So lead managers get in touch with us. Issuers get in touch with us. We want to issue. So we help the international community issue in RMB. And today, proudly, I can say, we do have more than 70 billion euro, in RMB equivalent kept in custody with us. So it's inbound, it's outbound. What do we do for the Chinese internationalization, the Chinese customers? We have been walking, we have been going through this road with the Chinese banks, as I said, since the 80s when they started expanding. And today we follow the business of the Chinese banks across the globe. So in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in Paris, in Frankfurt, in the US, we do have, as I said, more than 50 Chinese banks using us globally. We help them. Lately, I don't know whether you heard it, but we did the first green tripartite repo with CFETs in China with some Chinese banks. It was the first green tripartite repo where Clearstream acted as a collateral agent between cash givers and cash borrowers using CFETs. So we're very active with, the Chinese banks, internationalizing the Chinese capital markets, going and partnering with the Chinese banks on the RMB internationalization. As I said, we bring issuers, we bring lead managers. We do have a network of cash correspondent banks to accompany the RMB growth. We do have, for example, in Frankfurt, Bank of China. In Hong Kong, our cash correspondent bank is Bank of China. We do have globally around 17 trillion euro in assets under custody. And as I said, around 70 billion of that is in 70 billion euro is in RMB equivalent, right? So we bring those investors to invest in China. We facilitate the flow northbound, southbound. And we do everything related to custody, corporate action, securities lending and borrowing. A lot of the Chinese assets is being used in securities lending and borrowing. And I'm talking about RMB. I'm not talking about the G3, the dollar, the euro, the pound. When the government of China or any bank in China issues in dollar or euro, it's fine. It's international G3 euro bonds. But I'm talking more about the RMB. So we have been promoting the RMB. We have been accompanying the growth.
So, sorry, we cannot hear from the site. Maybe you have finished already. Can you hear us? So, Singapore colleagues, can you hear my voice in Beijing? Hello? My counterparts from Singapore, can you hear me from Beijing? So I believe maybe they cannot hear me either. Maybe I can show my hand as a gesture. Maybe they cannot see me. So then we start with UAE. So again, due to technical issues, we will then switch to another item. And we have heard the majority of the remarks by Singaporean colleagues. Can you hear us? So just now we've heard, I believe, the majority of the remarks by the Singaporean side. And now Singapore is still not working. Okay, then we will connect with Singapore later on. And now let's connect with UAE sub-venue. So I also like to ask Mr. Mahadi Mana. So we know that this ARPCSO is a regional payment institution. It plays a very important role in the region. So I would like to ask you about your organization, the profile of your organization, how does it operate, and also for the RMB internationalization process, what impact does this process will have on your organization? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gao. I would like also to thank the organizer and the invitation from Bank of China and the municipal government of Beijing, People Bank of China, and all other organizers for inviting Buna to this very important conference. Yes, thank you very much for introducing the RPCSO as well. RPCSO is the operator of Buna. Buna is now becoming more and more popular. It's a payment system that operates at cross-border level and in multi-currencies. So today we are speaking about the RMB as a possible currency to be used in the cross-border context to process payments and to support trades and investment between different countries and between different regions. Payment systems are for the currencies, which are the means of payment, what roads are for cars. So without payment system, the payment cannot move from payer to a payee. Without a payment system, currencies cannot achieve their purpose of being the means of payment. So this is why organizations like Buna and others, CIPS has been mentioned earlier as well, are important to facilitate the use of currencies in the context of payment and supporting investment and supporting trades. So this is, in brief, what is the role of Buna and the positioning of the RPCSOs. And in this context, as I mentioned, Buna is a cross-border payment system. What does it mean? It means that we do not only facilitate payment between within a country, but also between different countries. Buna has been born as an Arab initiative, so the primary aim is to support integration between the Arab economies and to empower them and to facilitate collaboration between the different Arab countries. But not only, because since the inception, Buna has been born and designed with a global set of mind, and thus aims at building roads and bridges between the Arab regions, the different Arab countries, and our main trade partners to make this relationship stronger and to make them more efficient. And obviously, as it has been mentioned by some speakers earlier, between China and the UAE, between China and many of the other Arab countries as well. And if we look at the Arab countries as a region, integrated region, thanks to Buna and thanks to other initiatives, the relationship between China and the Arab countries is very important and it's very solid. And in order to make it even more efficient, we need to support it by even more efficient solution that provide the right tools to support this interaction, to support trading and to support investment between the two regions. And there it comes Buna and also the RMB, because one way of achieving that is indeed to allow the use of the currency at cross-border level. This is what Buna can facilitate. So the inclusion of the RMB in Buna and or the participation of Buna in CIPS would bring immediately a tangible result and provide this relationship with the tools that is needed to make sure that corporates, that also individuals can rely on these roads and these bridges to exchange money in multiple currencies and in RMB in particular. So it has been mentioned earlier that just between the UAE and China, we have a very important number, 6,000 businesses have been mentioned, 300,000 individuals. At the level of the Arab region, it's much more important than that. So China has important presence in Algeria, Egypt, and many other Arab countries. All these companies, all these businesses, all these individuals as well need to be able to rely on efficient means of payment and on reliable currencies to do what they are supposed to do, which is to, again, exchange goods and services and to invest in different regions for the good of different countries and different regions. So this is why Buna is an important actor in my view to support this internalization of the RMB. And equally, RMB will be also very important to Buna because Buna also cannot achieve its purpose without having currencies to process the payment. So this is definitely a win-win situation that we are trying to build and to promote with our partners in China.
Thank you, Mr. Mana, for your wonderful introduction. We know that MF is very important under MF, UPCASO, in terms of cross-border payment. And UPCASO, we know that it is a very good player in cross-border payment. And with further consideration in including RMB and Buna, probably we will have more questions on Buna. And maybe it's about its future and the prospect of Buna. Generally speaking, Arab countries are very important trading partners to China in terms of currency, and Arabic countries are very promising in terms of payment facilitation. Arabic countries have a lot to do in the future, and thank you again, Mr. Mana, for your sharing. Now, I'd like to connect with Singapore. I'd like to connect with Singapore, Mr. Pei Sai-fan. Are you ready to make your speech, Professor Pei Sai-fan? Can you hear me?
Yes，我听得到。
好的，好的。
Yes, I can hear you. So it's our great honor to invite you join us in this panel discussion, your views on RMB internationalization. We know that RMB internationalization, as known by you, shows the two-way interaction between the policy and the market. So I want to ask your opinion. How do you see the RMB internationalization? And RMB internationalization, in your view, in finance and economy and international conditions, do you think it is ready enough? Is it mature enough, or anything else we can do? Professor, please. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for your question. I try to answer in Chinese. And as a scholar and practitioners, I really want to share with you very objective minds of my view. It is true that RMB internationalization makes remarkable progress, but not that super fast. It is relevant to the national policy orientation. RMB internationalization cannot be achieved overnight. It is a progress step by step. On one hand, the macroeconomic conditions for RMB internationalization is not quite ready yet. Secondly, RMB internationalization and its specific conditions, such as the intensified development of financial market, as well as the acceptance from the international communities. And I will explain this one by one. First of all, a powerful and stable domestic economy is a pressing task for China. And in the past, China used to control the exchange rate and the interest rate relevant to its growth model, mainly driven by the state-owned company or the state-owned capital, and also the business was driven mainly by export. However, with time goes on, in China, it is a shift from export-driven to innovation-driven and consumption-driven. This is a change of the growth model, and China's total control of the capital account. And there is a less emphasis on the exchange rate because the reliance on export and accumulated capital is not very pressing. And the macroeconomic condition for RMB internationalization can be ready at that time. The other thing is the width and the depth of the financial system of China should be powerful or strong enough only when we have very stable and well-organized and well-governed financial system, plus relevantly large scale of capital, can we say the market can provide very fund investment channel for the offshore RMB, and so that we can guarantee a valuation and higher value for the offshore RMB, making RMB into an attractive currency internationally. And the other thing is to improve the cross-border flow of RMB and its policy and instruments to build a supervisory system of the flow of the RMB in response to the market volatility and the mechanism in terms of financial crisis. Accumulated experience is critical. So you know that a sovereign currency to become an international one should be a two-way communication, the willingness from both sides. Therefore, in international diplomatic work, China should do more work to tell China's story in a good way. Apart from Asia regions, and RMB should work hard for better and more support internationally. For example, the international community should have a better idea of China's economy, society, finance, rule of law, legalization, as well as other factors, and to also show respect to China's system. And as a scholar, as far as I know, in terms of a long-term objective progress of the situation. Please wait a second. There is a technical issue. And I believe this answer, and I feel very sorry, and we cannot hear from Professor in Singapore, and they cannot hear from me either. Why not this way? It's almost the last point from Professor, and just now we listened to. We already heard most of the answer. Let's move to the next speaker. Just now, Professor Pei, with very objective status, proposes some fundamental conditions, a very good summary of these conditions. You know, I'm also from academic background, and we often work out on the conditions, which conditions we meet and which we haven't met yet. And so it's kind of a two-way interaction, willingness from two sides. On one hand, we tell China's story in a good way. On the other hand, you need to be a strong player. Finish your homework in a good way to attract others. And it's a pity that he cannot hear from me. I quite agree with what Professor already put forward. And next. And why not we connect with our guest in Hong Kong? Should be no problem. We will have Secretary Xu Zhenyu from Hong Kong. Can you hear me? That is good, very good. And I have one question. You know, Hong Kong is so important to the internationalization of RMB. And in Hong Kong, as a hub for offshore RMB internationalization, we know that what does Hong Kong do? How does Hong Kong do to facilitate RMB internationalization? Please give us your idea.
Thank you for the invitation by the organizers, and I'm very happy to have this opportunity to participate in this roundtable session. So we just actually concluded our meeting with the ADB and other meetings in Bangkok. And actually, recently, the governments have been discussing about this issue because lately there has been big variation between the exchange rate of their local currency and also the USD. So they hope that these countries are expecting to participate in the RMB internationalization. So from this sense, I think this forum is quite timely. And then I would like to thank President Liu, who participated in the Hong Kong Investment Summit. And I also like to thank FSF to give Hong Kong opportunity to introduce about Hong Kong's practice and efforts in RMB internationalization. Just now I heard several speakers, including the Madam Xu from SPIC and La Mania from SG, and also Mr. Robert Tampert, and also colleagues from UAE and Clearstream Banking, etc. So they are also using the Hong Kong's role as a financial hub. And in terms of the RMB deposit, in Hong Kong, we have about 1 trillion RMB deposit. In terms of RMB payment, Just now, Mr. Mania also mentioned about the payment issue. So for the global offshore payment in RMB, 75% of such payment is made in Hong Kong. Therefore, in the past, the RMB internationalization in Hong Kong has laid a good foundation, and we will live up to the high expectation. We'll continue with this important course. Especially under the dual circulation state policy, I think at financial level, Hong Kong is an important hub and fulcrum for the dual circulation strategy. So we will work on 3 fronts on RMB internationalization. Number 1, on product. So we need to thank the central government for their long-term support to Hong Kong SAR. For example, the Financial Ministry, starting from 2009, they have been issuing bonds in Hong Kong for the last 14 years, and PBOC has also established a long-term mechanism to issue new products. And recently we got a news that is the Shenzhen government visited Hong Kong twice for the issuance of bonds, including green bonds and blue bonds. And in addition, the Hainan provincial government and also issued bonds in Hong Kong. So we also offer the tax reduction and exemption for these mainland local governments. So we also hope to expand the tax grace to the mainland products. Apart from the product, we have also been promoting the infrastructure. For example, we must continue improving our infrastructure efficiency and effectiveness so that we can improve the bearing capacity for RMB internationalization. To be specific, we have a bond settlement that is Central Money Bank Unit, CMU. So now we are optimizing its efficiency to enrich our service system so that we can better serve our customers, including the Bond Connect and also the Southbound Connect. Apart from product and infrastructure, the third area, as Mr. Lee mentioned, we have been working with PBOC, and there is a currency swap agreement, and now this agreement has been expanded to 800 billion RMB, and through our policy, we have been introducing from the mainland more overseas products. For example, we have been opening our Hong Kong fund. It's pretty much like the pension fund in mainland, and we have accumulated scale of 1 trillion Hong Kong dollars. So with this 1 trillion HKD, we have been working with the Financial Ministry and PBOC, and they can provide the condition-free collateral for such securities and bonds. So through this two-way circulation, we can introduce the issuance of the mainland bonds, and we can also promote these two-way RMB bond products. So basically from the 3 aspects, the liquidity and product and infrastructure, we have been promoting RMB internationalization. We also hope to promote jointly with counterparts from all over the world. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Xu, for your sharing. So I usually say that Hong Kong is an irreplaceable hub for the RMB internationalization all the way. And also you mentioned a lot of numbers. For example, 75% of the payment occurred in Hong Kong. And according to BIS data regarding exchange rate, Hong Kong is also occupying the lion's share. And for ADB, Asian Development Bank, it also has certain statistics regarding the bond market monitoring and local currency. So actually, the RMB nominated bond has been in a large number, but they mainly concentrate in Hong Kong. So all these have shown that Hong Kong remains a very important financial hub, especially in terms of liquidity cooperation. And we also pay attention to this reserve information of the PBOC because the liquidity support is a necessity with the internationalization of RMB. Therefore, the central banks need to better coordinate. So this progress comes very fast. So at the operation level, we must also act very swiftly. So thank you very much. With that, we wrap up the first round of discussion. Thank you for the remarkable discussions. And for the second round, so I'm wondering whether you can be more specific based on the first round presentation about your observations. So we follow the order of the previous session, and the first one, Mr. Li Bing, you mentioned about a lot of changes. So going forward, how we can promote the internationalization of RMB from the perspective of PBOC, what will be the specific measures? Thank you, Professor Gao. Just now I've heard a lot of observations regarding the RMB internationalization, which are quite insightful, and many of us actually have touched upon the pathways and measures for the next step. I think that with China's national strength being increased, we need to further promote RMB internationalization to better serve the international needs for the liquidity of RMB and also the currency in RMB, especially the asset management. And as a PBOC, the central bank, the supervisory authority, we will earnestly implement the spirit of the 20th NC National Congress and also give enterprises their ownership. Just as Professor Pan of Singapore, he mentioned that this is a natural process. We need to serve the real economy, stick to the reform and opening up, win-win cooperation and coordinate development, safety and security, and promote the RMB internationalization in an orderly manner. To be specific, we think that we need to serve the real economy and to promote trade facilitation for the high-quality development. That will be a key. We need to focus on the real economy, as the 20th NC report has made it very clear. Real economy is an important goal of RMB internationalization. On PBOC side, we will further consolidate the institutional system of RMB internationalization in terms of infrastructure improvement and to promote the trade facilitation and further enhance the function of payment of RMB and to better serve the market players and to promote the trade investment in RMB currency and to reduce the mismatching risks for currencies. Second, we need to stick to win-win cooperation. As many colleagues have mentioned this point, we need to steadily promote high-quality opening up. China's state policy of opening up and also the win-win strategy remain unchanged, and we will further provide new opportunities for the world's development. So to promote the RMB internationalization in an orderly manner is important part of the high-quality opening up. For PBOC, we'll continue promoting the institutional openness, strengthen the coordination and cooperation with the central banks around the world, and also to contribute to the use ownership of RMB assets for the investors at home and abroad will further strengthen the investment financing and as the reserve or deposit currency of RMB to further enrich the financial transactions, trade investment options for investors and dealers, so that they can have a more diversified portfolio choices for their investment asset and to distribute China's development dividend to more entities. Number three, we need to coordinate the relationship between development and stability and to fend off systematic risks. During the process of internationalization, we will stick to the systematic concept, the holistic concept. We will stick to the red line and further promote the cross-border capital flow monitoring, and for the potential cyclic risk and disruptions and volatilities for the cross-border capital flow, we will further improve the prudent and macro management mechanism. In this area, PBOC is quite seasoned, and we will further improve the micro and macro prudent management so that the management level can be matching with also the internationalization level. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Li. And PBOC's mindset and pathway is quite clear regarding how to better serve the real economy and also the further openness and relationship between development and security. He also mentioned that the central bank has a lot of toolkits to better exercise the macro and micro prudent regulation and supervision for the stability of the financial sector, which is quite critical. And the previous operations of PBOC have been following the trend, and I think the steps and measures recommended by Mr. Li are quite pragmatic. Thank you again for your sharing. And now I would like to ask Madam Xu. Just now you introduced about the internationalization of the SPIC company, SPIC, and also the RMB internationalization's impact on your business. So can you be more specific, like at operation level? Like many people said that there will be more ownership for the enterprises, and the RMB internationalization will be also driven by the market. So on your side, how you recognize this internationalization process, and what are the specific measures for SPIC? Okay, thank you. After hearing the observations by so many experts, especially the measures and mindset, I think they are quite insightful. As a central SOE, the SPIC is an important player in the marketplace. Regarding the understanding of RMB internationalization, I believe we do have very in-depth understanding, especially in the 20th NC report. It mentioned to promote RMB internationalization in an orderly manner as a state basic policy. We think that is very important. As the second largest economy in the world and also the largest trading economy in the world, and also the country with the largest foreign exchange reserve. So China is ranking number 4 in international currency reserve. This is encouraging news. However, we also see that the free conversion of RMB system is not quite fixed, and also the financial system has been improved. Actually, it takes time for the RMB internationalization system, and this has meant that this internationalization process should be a phase 1, step by step.
Before I join in today's forum, I also made some reflection on this question, and I want to share with you my views, which is not absolutely right. I just want to make it as a start for more discussion. There are 3 ideas from my side. We know that I'm the only person in today's panelist discussion from real economy. And the first thing is that green energy may be the right starting point to promote RMB internationalization. In terms of 2030 and 2060 goals of carbon reduction is a commitment made by the Chinese government to the world, but also the industrial development direction by the professional institutions. The green investment scale to reach the goal is up to hundreds of trillions. And the other thing is that in the green sector, the green energy industrial chain in China has its leading advantage. For example, the upstream of green energy and for rare earths accounts for 90%, as well as the production of polysilicon accounts for 60%. And the PV, the middle stream of it, accounts for 70% of the global capacity. And the wind power capacity accounts for 40%. The other technology, such as the lithium battery and the hydrogen energy development in terms of the energy storage technology, which are quite world-leading. And the two SPIC and the overseas installed capacity will be doubled by the end of 14th five-year plan. According to the Go Global strategy made by China, our goal by 2035 is to realize a world-leading clean energy company with international competitiveness. At the present, we think about the possibility of using green energy to realize RMB internationalization because we have a more power of saying. For example, the pricing by RMB, settlement by RMB, and to build a green energy in RMB. So this is my first idea. The second one is that Hong Kong is the offshore RMB center, which is the hub to realize RMB internationalization. Hong Kong, as a world-leading financial center internationally, now grows into a product center, settlement center, and the currency center for RMB. And the energy company, the state-owned energy company, had listed companies in Hong Kong. In recent years, the state-owned energy companies established a financing investment and capital management platform in Hong Kong. Take SPIC, for example. We have China Power and 2380, and which is a brand with 20 years history. I should say it has been acknowledged by the global investors. In our view, some very top listed company like China or state power company to attract international investors and to expand, to construct the new energy and also to expand the scale of offshore RMB. And that is my second suggestion. And maybe we can leverage the role of Hong Kong to further internationalize RMB. Thirdly, is the carbon trade in Hong Kong is a good opportunity to further internationalize RMB. Looking into the future, 130 countries and regions and indicate explicitly their carbon neutralization schedule and the major global economies and their industrial policy have comprehensive and systematic development. We can predict that green energy will be one of the priorities down the road. And with green development, carbon trade is also very active. Last year, 2021, the global carbon trade volume is up to 850 billion. However, the global centralized market for carbon trade is not formed, and the development pace across the world is varied, especially Asia is in development stage at present. Hong Kong International Carbon Trade Hub or Center, in our view, not only provides a very good opportunity for the RMB regionalization, but also in the future could be used in other country blocks such as BRICS countries and other regions to drive RMB internationalization by RMB regionalization. And so this is another suggestion from my side. SPIC, as the first group of members on the Hong Kong International Carbon Trade, and we actively engage in the international carbon trade in Hong Kong. The first RMB pricing international carbon trade is concluded in the future. together with Hong Kong Exchange and overseas financial institutions, as well as the major players in the market to commonly promote the green finance standards, green finance products, and the carbon trade market. So 3 ideas from my side and open to discussion. I hope this is a good start for our discussion. Thank you. And thank you. Thank you, Ms. Xu. And I think that what you said is full of valuables. And you talked about from the corporate levels, 3 ideas, especially to seize the opportunity of green energy development by leveraging the role of Hong Kong as offshore RMB center. And also you talked about the carbon trade market, which is just in its inception stage. And I must say that China has its advantage in this regard, especially in the carbon pricing by RMB, which has a lot of prosperity to expect. And that is a very frontier for us to explore. Companies are greatly motivated to engage in this process. Very good, exciting news. And thank you very much. And I think that your 3 suggestions are very helpful, and we learned a lot from them. Just now, you talked about one company, SPIC, but government authorities, financial institutions are at the level of service provisions. I think this communication is very important. And again, I want to thank you for your answering. And next, I'd like to, by this sequence, I'd like to ask Mr. de la Mannerich. And just now you talked about international banks and foreign banks have their advantage in RMB internationalization, and they are complementary to each other. I want to ask you if your bank has very good experience to share with us some feasible models or specific cases, anything you'd like to share with us.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for this interesting question. I would say I can think of 2 case studies that are quite practical, and this is a bit specific to who we are, being a foreign institution in China. Obviously, one of our key role is to finance MNCs in China for their development, and clearly for that, this requires precisely to use renminbi, because more and more MNCs are producing in China, receiving their revenues in China, and basically the renminbi then needs to be used under one form or the other, and this is one of the key roles that we have. And again, for that, definitively, tools like CIPS are obviously key drivers for the expansion of renminbi. In that regard, I would definitively welcome to suggest actually either simplification and a shorter process for the use of CIPS, or potentially as well a reduction of the fees to be a full member, direct member of CIPS. Another example I would like to share with you is again a bit specific to who we are, Société Générale. We are one of the only bank, I believe, today still investing in one particular continent, which is Africa. Most banks have been retreating step by step from this continent. We, on the contrary, not only have kept a good presence, but we are continuing to invest in that continent. And for renminbi capacity, definitively we see that there is potential for further growth. And we have seen, actually, thanks to the push of many real companies like yours, like SPIC, to really invest more and more in that particular continent, sometimes quite often actually based on green and sustainable investments. And we were one of the first bank to label some contracts in renminbi. I believe it was in Algeria many years ago. So we continue to see this. I think the key driver for that is definitively the request from our SOE customers in particular to label more and more contracts, whether it's a project finance or other type of financing means, using renminbi as a reference currency. And I believe this is the source of the needs, because once those contracts and financing contracts are labeled in renminbi, then this generates obviously all the following services that we need to provide, whether it's payments, hedging, further financing, providing, and making sure, of course, that there is the possibility for each of those ultimate customers to pay also in renminbi. So we believe that actually the trends that we have been observing for the last few years definitively are contributing also in the expansion of renminbi. So I think it's true in Africa. It's true also, as we have experienced in other countries in Asia and in other parts of the world as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Mariach talked about these two cases, and especially the two specific cases in African country, African continent. A lot of BRI project made financing for their projects in Africa country, and I think that your bank is very experienced in this region. Just now we talked about real, and it is called real contract and relevant to the real economy, and that is a very solid step taken and in expanding RMB, and I hope that your bank and will be have more support and cooperation with the project investors in China and to meet their financing need. I believe a lot of potential for us to expect in cooperation. Thank you very much. And just now, and the connection with Singapore had a technical issue. Just now, Professor Pei talked about the last point, and we really look forward to the last point from Professor Pei. And I don't know if the technical staff are ready to connect with our guest in Singapore. Is it possible to reconnect with Professor Pei? Okay, and Dr. Pei, and we have heard most of your answer, so the last part of your answering is not well received from our side. Would you please to continue or conclude your speech just before it was disrupted? And you mentioned the last point. So I will continue to answer the first question. Yes, and so the last point of the first question. So in my conclusion, it is in this way.
So as a scholar, personally, I believe that if we take a medium and long perspective based on the objective situation, why I say that? Because annually we may have overissuance, and also the over-weaponization have caused the less confidence of the international community on the sovereign fund. And also recently, the fintech and digital technologies may also bring all possibilities. And this is what I want to focus more. So these elements may have the impacts on the future development of RMB internationalization, and they may also create uncertainties. And that is the summary of my last part. Thank you. And the last summary is quite critical for us. And next, I would like to also connect with the Singapore side. Can you further elaborate on your observation on the digital currency, because currently we have seen the blockchain-based DCs, and also there are CBDCs. So for the DCs, what do you think how the DCs will play a role in the RMB internationalization? And based on your last part summary, can you elaborate further on that? Okay, thank you. So the digital currency initiated by Facebook, that is a Diem. We know that the subscription has concluded. And the reasons behind that are quite apparent. The Western countries, especially the US, and also the Federal Reserve of the US, has been opposing to this product. But for a scholar like me, I believe that Diem project has very good design concept and governance structure, all of which are quite valuable for those who are seeking for alternatives and substitutions of USD, because Diem is quite attractive for these needs, because Diem is not issued by a sovereign state. Instead, it is actually issued by a fund association comprising of different governments or organizations. So it is a quasi-international currency, the Diem. So I believe that on top of such a product, we can design and create a quasi-Diem product that is a quasi-currency, a local digital a quasi-digital currency in the Asian countries, not issued by a single sovereign state. Because I also know clearly that to land such a project that requires the efforts from multiple parties, and this is an arduous task, and it takes a long way to go. So comparably, the more realistic option is that for the DUSD process, we have seen a recent development, that is the so-called multilateral CBDC's bridge, or the multiple CBDC bridge. I believe that several colleagues mentioned about this bridge. And the key is that for such a bridge, it allows the participating members, especially the financial institutions, to use their CBDCs of their own countries. So I repeat, it allows the participating financial institutions to use their own CBDCs, which is a kind of a safeguarding of the currency sovereignty of each country. And also based on the blockchain or the distributed computing technologies or platforms of sharing, we can allow the CBDC to have these mutual transactions and to form the so-called the same chain and different currency, which is a kind of a cross-border digital payment scheme or system. In this way, we can reduce the low efficiency and also the heavy reliance on the cross-bank systems, and we can also reduce the reliance on the USD for cross-border payment. We can use this to achieve what RMB internationalization wants to achieve, that is to contain and check and balance about the dominating power of USD instead of substituting or taking over USD. That is also being repeatedly mentioned by the PBOC of China. So personally, I believe that this bridge, MBCDC, bridge will become a future option for the international digital currency system. And there is this possibility. Currently in Asia, there have been two similar projects going on. One is participated by China in 2019, that is so-called Lion Rock, and also mentioned by my colleague. Another is the project participated by Singapore in 2021, that is DEMBA, the so-called DEMBA project. The two projects are undergoing the R&D, especially the Lion Rock participated by China has actually carried out the authentic transaction testing. And the challenges faced by the two projects, including to promote the policy, digital privacy, supervision, governance, coordination. So these are the challenges faced by such two projects. And lastly, I would like to recap. At the global level, now we have these two projects. They are closely related with the value chain. So then we have these multiple bridges going in parallel and multi-hub or multi-center new pattern. And for China's CBDC, whether it can depends on the digital economy and the digital advancement as a first mover, whether China's DC can become a part of the international digital currency. I think it takes time to see, but I can affirm that as a large economy and developing country, the CBDC of China should integrate with the international system, strengthen international cooperation, better adapt to the digital payment future at the global level. And also believe that the key considerations include that we need to check and balance the dominating power of the USD instead of taking the internationalization RMB to take over the USD, because one country's currency after the internationalization will face its inherent risks in management. Okay, that's my observation. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Pan, for your very valuable insight and input. You mentioned about some fundamental issues of DC regarding the sovereignty, and now we call the fiat money, and the confidence for sovereign currency has been shaky. So I believe that the DC has also got its own rationality, and different countries may hold different views. And for PBOC of China, the PBOC is quite a front runner in the DC, and in many aspects we see that PBOC is actually leading in this aspect, and it may play a bigger role in the future. You also mentioned that for the quasi-digital currency, it's not an empty concept, because many scholars have explored about the definition of such a notion. And you mentioned also about the multiple bridges, and actually I think we need to roll out from the bottom level. Thank you again for your insightful input, and many of these ideas have been put into place, and gradually we can build up the scale, especially your observation on the USD is quite reasonable, because the internationalized RMB is not to take over USD, and also each local currency has its own logic, especially in the digital era. This logic may also be reflected as time goes on. So thank you for Professor Pan's input on this very important topic. And now I would like to connect with the UAE side. So, Mr. Mana, just now you introduced about this cross-border payment system, the operation, and you mentioned about that Buna is the first cross-border payment system and its operation and its status quo. And can you be more specific? Because I believe this question is very important because you started from scratch with this system. So can you be more specific regarding what's your cooperation with China in such a system and what's your expectations? And you also mentioned about the development of cross-border payment. So can you also share more on the future of cross-border payment generally? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Buna is still a young initiative. So we went live 2 years ago. And as I tried to explain in my previous answer, the most important step, and it should be the first one for a solution like Buna, is the inclusion of the currencies. So in Buna, we had, since the beginning, the aim of having a combination of international and Arab currencies. Today, after these 2 years of operation, we have 6 currencies. 2 international currencies, so the US dollar and the euro. We included them because they are extensively used today in cross-border payment. It is not our objective to question that, but it is definitely our objective to give some space to other options. And this is why we also included the Arab currencies. So today we have 4 Arab currencies: the Emirati dirham, the Saudi riyal, the Egyptian pound, and the Jordanian dinar as the 4th. We included these Arab currency because here we had the clear aim to empower these economies, so the different countries, to make their access easier to other Arab countries and also to other regions outside the Arab region. And this is why today we want to move to the next step. And one of our priority is to include, indeed, as a third international currency, the RMB, because we strongly believe that including the RMB will also empower the relationship between the Arab countries and China. And it will offer additional options, more straightforward options as well when it comes to trading and investment between these 2 regions. When it comes to the participants or the banks that have joined Buna, we had the objective of reaching 100 banks by the end of this year. So this objective is getting closer. Now we have 91 banks that have signed the participation agreement. So more than 90% of that objective is being reached. And the objective of next year is to reach 200 banks from the Arab region operational and reachable in Buna. So what would the interconnection between Buna and CIPS means? It means that suddenly we will have a very efficient rail connecting the 200 banks on the Arab side to the Chinese banks participating in CIPS, all of them. And the interconnection efficient and safe between the community of Arab banks and the community of Chinese banks will allow them to support trades, to support investment, and to support exchanges between China and the Arab countries. So this is why we are here as well working in priority to realize and materialize such interconnection. We are in contact with CIPS. We had different dialogue with them, and we are progressing well in investigating the ways that would allow to interconnect to these 2 systems. We have also a memorandum of understanding with UnionPay with the same aim to contribute to stronger connection between China and Asia in general and the Arab world. And we hope also that some of the Chinese bank could, when they join Buna as a participant, this will just, with this different dimension combined, further contribute again to fertilize and make the relationship between the Arab region and China very fruitful and very successful, and with real potential of growth.
Thank you very much for Mr. Mana's sharing. And it is true that Buna has 4 Arabic currencies and 2 foreign currency. One is dollar, the other one is euros. The third currency is the RMB, and its prosperity is very promising. I should say that with the common efforts, with the mutual efforts by 2 sides, and we can take solid steps to make it better. Just now you talked about the payment system and its cooperation with CIPS. And all these are very important aspects in our cooperation. Generally speaking, in serving the real economy, we want to lower the transaction cost, and facilitation is important. We need to make the payment more streamlined and convenient, and we really look forward to our future cooperation. Thank you very much, Mr. Mana, for your sharing. Next, let's go back to Singapore. It is good. And Mr. Robert Tabet, and we have heard the first part of your answer. And we know your answer for the first question. Based on what you already shared, I have a follow-up question. So the RMB internationalization, you know, the foreign direct investment is very important to use Chinese RMB. And do you have any new ideas, or in your view, in promote RMB internationalization and its relation to enhancing foreign direct investment? What else can we do so that the international investors can engage into the domestic market in China?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead.
I didn't hear all of the question. You were talking about FDIs, and then we lost you.
Sorry. 现在可以听得见吗？
So can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. So we will repeat this question. So in your view, in promoting RMB internationalization and its relation to FDI, anything else can we do? This is the first question. The second question is that how can we attract more international investors to engage in the domestic market of China?
I heard the question. It's 2 questions. Let me answer them in one question, because I'll be talking about the same thing. We all know China is the 2nd biggest economy in the world. China is the 3rd bond market in the world. Everyone wants to invest in China. I was lately at the IMF attending with my chairman and CEO of the IMF. We met with many central banks. And one of the topics that everyone asked in every meeting was China. Do you give access to China? And our reply was definitely yes. As I said before, we give access through Stock Connect, Bond Connect, and CIBM. But this is very good. And I tell you, let me go straight to the conclusion. The way we see it, China has grown its economy exponentially since the 1990s. And today, if we look at the RMB from a trade currency to an investment currency to a reserve currency. In my opinion, we are between the investment, the trade, it's being used more. As we all know, it's the fifth traded currency on the SWIFT network. So if we look at that, we're very encouraged by what we see. Customers, as I said, want to use, to invest in China. And when they ask us, so you give access? Yes, we give access, but they have concern. And as I was saying, a strong China, an imposing China is, in my humble opinion, internationalizing more the RMB and opening it for foreign investors. If we look at the US dollar, if we look at the United States, the US dollar is the strength of the United States. And China today, where it is, with the growth being the second biggest economy in the world, needs a strong and international RMB to attract, to impose itself, to get more respect, to grow its partnership. The world is looking at a second leader. Yes, the US. We're not taking the credit of the US. Europe as another bloc. But here, closer to where I sit here in Singapore, China is not just a regional player, a regional role player, but China, the world is looking at China. So many countries in the Middle East, in Europe, in trading partners in Africa, everyone is looking at China and the internationalization of the RMB. To do that, very easy. To attract FDIs, it's very easy. Make it simple. Give access, ease the access to China. No need to wait for a couple of weeks to get whatever certification or access or to register. Make it simple. If I decide to invest in Germany or in the US, tomorrow I can be, after I fill my tax forms, be investing. Make access easy. Streamline the process. Too many channels today. CIBM, Stock Connect, Bond Connect, make it easier. On the top of what I just said, the papers. Create a new instruments. Investors need new instruments. Keep on, developing the yield curve. They need to see, international investors, they need to see the Chinese bonds being traded on the international markets, not just locally. Look at the US treasuries, look at the German bonds. They can trade in the local market, they can trade in the ICSD, and we see a lot of trading happening in the ICSD. Don't be afraid of that. Everyone, it's the second biggest bond market, it's the third biggest bond market in the world. Everyone is interested in that. So make it easy. Repo, transferability, as I said, let the Chinese government bonds and corporate bonds be traded locally and be traded internationally. If we make it simple, everyone has interest in China. Lending and borrowing, collateral management is a very big thing. Today, if I put capital in China, if I invest in China, I cannot use A+ bond issued by the government of China in the collateral management space. So I'm blocked. I'm not really using well my capital. So if you let those bonds be used in securities lending, in bilateral, in tripartite repo, more investors would be interested. Why do I need to put my money? Look at, I'm not just interested in the coupon. I'm interested, to use this asset as collateral, to do a repo, to pledge it to a central bank. And everyone would be happy with that. Collateral management is a very big thing. And when you internationalize, when you create a transferability of those assets of the Chinese government bonds, this will open the market and attract more. If one thing I want to leave or conclude with, from what we see, I talk to many banks across the region, central banks across the world, in the Middle East and Asia, everyone has interest. Make it simple, they will come, you will grow the RMB internationalization. This is what is my conclusion. Thank you.
非常感谢。
And thank you very much, Mr. Tabit, for your very clear conclusion. Simplify and make it simple. And I think that the colleagues from PBOC are also presenting here, and a lot of work must be done to remove the barriers by institutional improvement. Just now you talked about the trade, investment, reserve currency. The functions need time to make evolution. And some important time node. The biggest one is at the investment. And probably we have less opened areas. The market access and other barriers and problems do exist. And actually, the PBOC has done a lot of work, and of course, more work will be done to facilitate investment. And thank you very much, Mr. Tabit, for your sharing. And this is a very valuable suggestion too, not only offered to the decision makers, but also to some institutional investors or institutions. And next, I'd like to connect with Hong Kong and Mr. Xu. Just now, you talked about Hong Kong as a hub for RMB internationalization. And would you please to be more specific? Would you please to elaborate on the recent progress? For example, the interconnectivity between mainland China and Hong Kong in the financial market. What is the latest progress? Thank you. Well, for a long time, the interconnectivity between mainland China and Hong Kong has always been very successful and stable and mature. If we review the history, for example, the Stock Connect, and a lot of progress has been made recently, and this the northern direction transaction is around 120 billion, and southern direction is 30 to 40 billion Hong Kong dollars. And if we think about the net flow, if it is Stock Connect, and for example, the Shenzhen stock and the Shanghai stock, everything the Stock Connect is available, and the overseas net inflow is over 1.6 trillion yuan. How about the Bond Connect? And the Bond Connect, once Bond Connect is available by now, the stock is in Hong Kong. The bond investment is up to over 3.4 trillion yuan. And by the average transaction volume, there is a big growth. Therefore, in terms of the Stock Connect or the Bond Connect, interconnectivity between mainland China and Hong Kong has been great success. So based on that great success, and what else can we do to further promote RMB internationalization? And Mr. Mana and Mr. Tabit talked about the instrument and the products, very important. And Mr. Tabit says, the simpler the better. We need to make it simple. And today, I want to use another adjective, that is the diversified or diversification. We will try our best to diversify our ecosystem.
Specifically, in terms of stock and bonds, we are actively introducing new products. And I also heard your observations in the stock aspect. Apart from asking these bondholders to introduce more stock products, we also ask and propose the stock exchange to introduce more overseas bond, and the mainland investors can also buy the Hong Kong listed shares. Apart from that, we also have new move regarding the southern direction. Regarding the Stock Connect, we would introduce the RMB counter and the investors can use their RMB at hand to buy the Hong Kong shares, and with these RMB shares, they do not need to convert the currencies into different currency to make these conversions. Apart from stock, another key point is in the bond market. We are also aiming to diversify the ecosystem of the products. And Mr. Mania also mentioned about the expectation to have more derivatives. So at the PBOC side, it's quite clear, and now we are actively preparing for the northern direction bond connected to have these derivatives, and we need to have this interconnection in the derivatives market. And for international investors, they can also participate in the mainland bond market through the Hong Kong hub. Apart from this new derivative, we are also starting to issue the state bond futures, and this is a additional risk management tool for international investors to better manage their interest rate and other risks. So in this sense, either for the stock market, like to promote the RMB counter, and or in the bond market, we can promote this new derivative for the connect. We really hope to enrich our ecosystem of products and to further intensify Hong Kong's status as a all-round offshore RMB asset management and risk management hub. Apart from the systematic optimization, there also will be the profits from the interconnection. We also will promote more favorable supportive policies, for example, on RMB counter. We also promote the RMB counter focused expert system so that there will be more liquidity, and such new transactions will be exempted with the certain taxes, stamp taxes, for example, and they can also get the expert respond from the expert mechanism for the investors. And we also will further optimize the interconnection existing system and also the financial physical policies to promote the RMB internationalization and to consolidate the Hong Kong's hub role. Thank you, Mr. Xu, for your sharing. And you used the keyword diversification from the specific products, and you mentioned several different moves for the strengthening of liquidity of RMB for onshore and offshore. These are quite important. And you also mentioned that if we take USD as a reference, I think the RMB internationalization may have possible breakthroughs, and we also have practical guidance. And thank you for your insightful input. So with that, we have concluded the 2 rounds of discussion, and we have been lagging behind. I'm not a very good chair for the session. I'm lagging behind. And anyway, thank you very much for the remarkable presentations and sharings. So I was supposed to make a recap, but for me, it's quite challenging for me because there have been many different trend, judgment, and orientations regarding the specifics and details of market and products. Therefore, the RMB internationalization discussion should go more specific going forward. But generally speaking, in this great transformation era, there are a lot of opportunities for those that are well prepared and those are sensitive and are wise in the decision making. So I believe that for all of you, all of us, for the practitioners, we have this in-person, in-depth experience. So based on the different recommendations and experience sharings, I've learned a lot. It's quite rewarding for me personally. And I also hope all of you feel the same way. And for RMB internationalization, I believe that it must rely on China's real economy. The high-quality opening should be a guardian for the internationalization, and we also need to have international cooperation. I feel that international cooperation is quite important. We believe that at different links, for example, decision-making at the top level like PBOC with different policies rolling out, we need to have a good option and make more progress in the face of uncertainties. For the RMB internationalization, I think it itself is a kind of a certainty, and that's my personal view. Once again, I would like to thank all the remarkable sharings from our panelists. Let's wrap up this session, and thank you. Thank you, the distinguished guests. And thank you for your attention. Thank you for your participation. Thank you all. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.